Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fallout. This is where I watch every play of every game of every week, trying to find you the fantasy football gems nobody else knows about. So let's bring the value right away. I'm talking about the New York Giants versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Daniel Jones' first start in the NFL in the regular season. Are we going to be fitting him for that gold jacket? I was ready to come in after watching the first part of that game and saying, hey, can we pump the brakes a little bit? Well, wouldn't you know it, he comes down, leads the team back, 4 total touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 2 in the air. Daniel Jones working all areas of the field. And let's be honest, this New York Giants team, Eli Manning is one of the slower quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. You know, I don't know who would win a race between him and Tom Brady. I would give the edge to Brady at this point. You know, Eli Manning, he's not a factor on the ground. Daniel Jones, man, if he can move the sticks on the ground, this adds another element to that offense. Big news, obviously, elephant in the room here. Saquon Barkley out 4 to 8 weeks. What's that going to do to the running game? I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not totally sure. I was expecting the Giants, this was a relatively close game for most of the game, I was expecting the Giants to utilize Gallman a little bit more, and at the end of the game, even though Barkley left, I think in the second quarter, only 8 carries for 10 yards for Barkley, the rest of the game, Gallman, 5 rushes for 13 yards. Not very good. Of course, the entire Giants were having a tough day running the ball. Daniel Jones was the leading rusher with 28 yards. That gives you some sense of what they've been able to do. Now, going forward, you would think that Gallman's going to be the guy. Likely, I'm guessing they're going to sprinkle in somebody else, to carry the load. When Saquon Barkley is going to miss a quarter to half the season, that's rough. And that's rough for Saquon Barkley owners. I'm assuming that everybody out there is probably already handcuffed with Gallman. That is the smart play at this point, from my point of view. Daniel Jones, I think this is going to impact him a little bit. I think he's going to continue to rely on Evan Ingram, as I say in most of these videos with the young quarterbacks. The young quarterback's best friend is the tight end and the pass-catching running back. I'm not sure if Rod Smith is still on the roster. Last time I checked, he is. So there's the running back there. I would anticipate, like I said, this to be more of a committee rather than Gallman just kind of try to carry the load of a Saquon Barkley. You can't really do that. Saquon Barkley's so good. Back to Ingram. I do think he'll continue to get a lot of targets. You see 8 targets, 6 catches, 113 yards, found pay dirt, found the end zone. Sterling Shepard had a nice game. 7 catches on 9 targets, also found the end zone. And don't forget out there, Golden Tate is going to be waiting for you on the waiver wire. Very, very likely. Unless you're in a deeper league and somebody stashed him. Look, with Saquon Barkley out, this team will have to throw the ball. Their most dynamic offensive weapon is gone. That probably means, and this isn't the best team in the world, probably means they're going to be playing from behind. They're going to be throwing the ball more. Golden Tate will be coming back from suspension soon. If you are a wide receiver hungry team like I am, look for Golden Tate and Deshaun Jackson. If you're in a thinner league, Deshaun Jackson might be on waivers thanks to his injury. Look for him as well. He'll be back at some point. Don't know when, but he'll be back. So those are 2 guys that you should really be looking at. I liked Slayton. I can't remember if he's a rookie or a second-year player, but he showed really well on the film. I see him as a 3rd receiver in the system once Golden Tate is back. I see Golden Tate as the kind of move the chains, extend the drives guy. When he's there, it should open more things up for Evan Ingram. I actually like where this passing offense is with Daniel Jones going forward. Daniel Jones isn't going to be able to go for 4 touchdowns every single game, but he's a talented player. He's a talented player. He's worth a roster spot, especially if he can pick up, a couple of yards on the ground, extend some drives. Those are always bonus yards, as I say. They're a quarterback that can carry the load on the ground as well. 2 touchdowns, a lot of leagues, you value touchdowns more on the ground than you do in the air. Those are all factors as well. So if you need a quarterback, Daniel Jones, pick him up if he's not already gone. And the receivers, like I said, I think Golden Tate is your nugget of wisdom. He'll be coming back from suspension very soon here. I would say this is probably the week to pick him up. If not this week, definitely next week. And then, Slayton is somebody I think is going to flash later in the year. But all of these weapons coming back, leads me to believe that the Giants will play better in the second half when Barkley is back. And I think this passing attack will continue to get better. Now, on the Tampa Bay side, you look at this game, this is a very winnable game. You have to be disappointed if you're a Buccaneers fan. Jameis Winston had one of his, better games, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns, but couldn't get it done. They couldn't extend the drive when they needed to. The interesting thing is, so we saw early in the year, Chris Godwin was getting a lot of targets, a lot of catches, and my thought was, it's a number of factors, not the least of which is defensive schemes really trying to take Mike Evans away and open things up for Godwin. This, to me, seemed like, and we saw this a little bit in Cincinnati as well this week with John Ross and Tyler Boyd, the defenses are adjusting. They're not going to let Chris Godwin just beat them at this point. I think they're giving him respect. Godwin was, I don't want to say shut down, but 4 targets, 3 catches, 30 yards. Not as good as his first 2 games. Well, when they start paying more attention to Godwin, what do you know? It opens things up for Mike Evans. 3 touchdowns, a monster game, 8 receptions on 15 targets, 190 yards. So welcome back to the fantasy football relevance, Mike Evans. So that's very good. You have to be very encouraged as a Mike Evans owner. Ronald Jones looked like the better running back this time. Peyton Barber looks like the more physical back. Here's the thing. When Ronald Jones is running, I'll go this way. When Ronald Jones is running and somebody breathes on him, he falls down. He just doesn't really break a lot of tackles, but he is very, very physically talented. He can run, he can break, he's the more explosive guy. He's just not the guy that's going to be able to get you a tough yard more often than not. So both running backs are going to be relevant in the system. I think that Ronald Jones is the better of the pass receiving running backs. The problem is, as I've been saying throughout preseason, his pass blocking isn't great. So if it's 3rd and whatever, you basically have the option of designing a play like a screen pass or a short pass for Ronald Jones, and maybe he chips a guy coming out of the backfield, or you have to put Peyton Barber in there to basically pick up the blitz if that's the protection. And then once you see those personnel things, the defensive coordinators are going to adjust. Basically, long story short, Ronald Jones, the only thing keeping him away from being a fantasy football star is his pass blocking. He's got to get better. He's got to get a little bit more physical. I like what I'm seeing, but he can do better. Fantasy football fallout-wise, O.J. Howard, 3 catches, 4 targets. Again, he's up and down. I said this last week. It's really about game plan with him. He's not going to be the consistent stalwart tight end that you see a Travis Kelce is. He has that kind of physical talent, but it's just not it's not in the cards in this offensive system. If you have him and you can still trade him for decent value, I suggest doing it because you can find other guys. Austin Hooper, for example, is going to have a much bigger year at the end of the season, in my opinion, than O.J. Howard. Not to say that Austin Hooper's a better player physically, but in terms of fantasy football and statistics, I mean, it is what it is. That's just how it's going to be. Early returns, I believe it's a trend moving forward into the season. We have 3 games of data now on all these teams, and you can start to see, what things are going to happen as we move forward. That's about it for fantasy football. Once again, I think on the Giants side, you want to be a little bit of a buyer on the receiver side. Golden Tate is that guy, that opportunity that's waiting out there for you, in my opinion. Slayton is a guy that I think is going to improve maybe in weeks like 8 through 12. So that's a longer-term investment, dynasty league, deep keeper league, deep bench league. I like Slayton, but he's not a starter yet. Maybe daily fantasy, but remember Golden Tate. I think this passing game will improve, and I think Golden Tate will get a lot of catches, especially in PPR leagues. So there you go. There's another episode. If you could, please support our channel. We're trying to grow this thing, trying to get a lot of subscribers, trying to get our watch minutes so that we can become an official partner. Once we become official partners, we can add more content. We can get more personalities on the screen. So how do you do that? You subscribe. You can hit the bottom in the lower right-hand side or the upper left-hand side, our logo. And you can also watch our playlists. I do every game. I do game previews. This is all about fantasy insight. I run analytics that nobody else has. They're proprietary. So we're growing this thing. Get in on the ground floor. We appreciate it, and check us out on another episode. Thanks.